Is fear keeping you from living your best life? If so, you are not alone. Fear exists for a reason, and it shows up in many clever and unexpected forms. This week, I talk with Rhonda Britten, founder of the Fearless Living Institute, about how fear shaped her life as the survivor of unimaginable childhood trauma. Trigger warning for anyone sensitive to domestic violence themes. We talk about the ways she struggled internally and externally until she finally understood her fears and how to manage them. She now teaches others how to identify and manage their own fears, and she shares some of those strategies and insights here. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Welcome to the Impostor Syndrome Files. My name is Kim Meninger, and as an executive coach and former high-tech leader, my personal mission is to help professionals overcome imposter syndrome so that you can advance your career with confidence. Each week, I interview a new guest who brings a powerful perspective to this conversation, including personal stories, best practices, and new insights. The more we talk about this issue, the more we destigmatize imposter syndrome, recognize that we're not alone, and empower ourselves to access the tools and resources that can help us and those around us. Thank you so much for listening and for sharing with others you think would benefit from this conversation. Welcome, Rhonda. It is such a pleasure to have you here today, and I would love to start by inviting you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh, telling me a little bit about myself. So wait, I could tell you about the time I won an Emmy, or I could tell you about my first book deal, or I could tell you about, oh gosh, I could tell you about so much. But what I really want to tell you is how I became who I am today, because I think that's actually the most important place, because I know so many times we can get caught up in accolades, and I like my accolades, by the way, 4 books, Emmy, 3, first life coach on television in the world. Like, I love those things. But what's so funny is, if you would have asked me in my 20s or 30s if I would do any of those things, that would have felt impossible because of the worst day of my life. Now, I believe, Kim, that the worst day of our lives have the seed of our destiny. So, when we think about those worst days of our lives, and we think of them and go, wait a minute, if Rhonda Britten's right, and the worst days of my life have the seeds of my destiny, okay, wait a minute, I've got to start looking at those worst days differently, right? And so the worst day I'm thinking about is the worst day of my life. And I was 14 years old. I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan. 365 inches of snow a year. Yes, we had that much. It snows from like November to May. I was actually home. I live in LA now. I was home last year and it was snowing in May. And everyone else is like, ah, and I'm like, yay, it's snowing. It's snowing, right? And everyone else is walking around going, it's been snowing since October. And I go, yes, but I live in LA. This is awesome, right? So I grew up in that little tiny town, and we had 2 restaurants, the fancy Douglas House Buffet Hotel and Big Boy. That's it. And my parents had recently separated, and my father was coming over. It was Father's Day, and he was going to take us out to Sunday brunch, which was a big deal. And my mother made me a brand new dress. It was white cotton with black polka dots. And I just thought I was so amazing because I was like all cottoned up, and I couldn't wait to go to the Douglas house and flirt with the boys my age. And so my 2 sisters are in the bathroom fighting it out. It's our one bathroom. My 2 sisters are fighting it out. I go into my mother's room. She's fluffing up her beehive and putting on a rose-colored lipstick and putting on her blue eyeshadow. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, come on, Mom, let's go, right? She's fluffing it up. And my dad walks in the back door and he comes in and goes, come on, let's go, girls, because that's what dads do. And my 2 sisters are in our one bathroom still fighting it out. And me and my mother start walking towards the back door to get in the car. And it starts raining. And my father says, I've got to go get my coat from the car. Now, this coat is a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat. And if you are old like me, Naugahyde leisure suit coats were hot. My father in that coat was looking hot. So me and my mom are like, okay, sure, yeah. So we all start walking out. My father opens his trunk to grab his coat. And instead of grabbing a coat, he grabs a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, you made me do this, you made me do this, and he fires. Now I start yelling, what are you doing, Dad? Stop, what are you doing, Dad? Yell, just literally like, stop, Dad, what are you doing? And he cocks the gun again, and he points it at me. And absolutely believe I'm next. And he blinks, I blink, he blinks, I blink, and we're there frozen, literally frozen, it feels like in time. And my mother, with her literal last breath, yells out, "No, don't." And my father, realizing my mother is still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that second bullet goes through her abdomen, out her back, lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is, "Eh." And then my father cocks the gun again, puts it to his head, and fires. So, in a matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me. Now, I don't know how you would have responded, but this is how I responded. It was my fault because I was the only one physically there that could have stopped it, right? I didn't grab the gun. I didn't kick his shins, right? I didn't even jump in front of my mother, right? I just yelled, "Stop, Dad, stop," right? And that moment, that day, looking back on it, I basically, on that day, split into two: the outside Rhonda and the inside Rhonda. The outside Rhonda, I'm a straight A student. I'm going on to going to become the president of my class. Like, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And I literally just believed I was fine, right? And that's the only thing I'd show to the world. I am fine. And by the way, when I went away to college a few years later into a different state and nobody knew my story, I never told anybody about my parents because then they would think I'm from one of those families. And so I basically just hid it because God forbid anybody knew that about me. So on the outside, I was fine, 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 fine. But on the inside, like I said, I blame myself. So I had, when you watch your mother die and you don't do anything, you don't, your happiness is off the table. You don't get to be happy the rest of your life, like ever. And basically just feeling that lack of worth, that low self-esteem, just on some level, just, you know, hating myself, right? Because I didn't save my mother. So for the next 20 years, I lived in that split. And on the outside, like I said, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I went on, when I went to college, I found alcohol, and that was a beautiful number, right? Found alcohol. Wow, this is amazing. Takes away all this pain away. And so I started drinking. I eventually became an alcoholic. I ended up getting 3 DUIs, ended up trying to kill myself 3 times. And it was that third suicide attempt, Kim, that I realized something, that I realized I'm not good at killing myself, not good at it. And I've got to figure out another way. And, when I did try to kill myself a third time, by the way, when you do that, they do put you in a psychiatric ward for evaluation. And I was deemed not crazy, so they let me out. And I went home to my little studio apartment. I lived alone. And not a good idea, by the way, when you're suicidal. And I remember getting home and just putting my back against the wall. I remember this so vividly. And you know how you just slide down the wall? And I just slid down the wall on my butt. And I realized I have to figure out another way. Now, those 20 years that I was drinking, DUI, and suicide attempting, I also was going to therapy. I was going to workshops. I was reading books. I mean, I read my first self-help book when I was 12. I was going to be a minister when I was 13. I was a self-help junkie. So this whole time, I was trying to do something for myself, right? So I had a lot of knowledge, right? I had a lot of knowledge and I had a lot of tools that, people gave me, right? But it didn't take away the fundamental feeling that there was something wrong with me, right? So I had tools, I had knowledge, but it didn't take away that feeling. And so that third suicide attempt, while I'm sitting on the floor and realizing something's got to change, what comes through my mind is I've got to start over. I've just got to start over because I've done all this work on myself. I've done all this work on myself and it's not working. So I got to like literally start over. And I remember thinking to myself, what do kindergartners do? Well, they go get gold stars and a calendar. And I went to the store and I got gold stars and a calendar. And I put a gold star on every day for 30 days if I did something good, something worth living for, something hopeful. And the gold stars I put on were not, extraordinary things. They were like drank and didn't break, didn't get drunk or, got angry and didn't break anything. This is the level of awareness I was at, right? Like, it's like, look at me, I didn't break anything. I'm amazing, right? So so after a whole month of 30 days, I had a calendar filled with gold stars. And that was the beginning of me realizing I really had hope to change, that there was something good in me to save. Now, it would take me a few more years to recognize fear was the source of all this. Because again, during those 20 years, I just blamed myself, right? Because I wasn't good enough, perfect enough, smart enough, didn't save my mother. Again, whatever it was. I had no idea that it was fear because even after my parents died, okay, even after my parents died, if you would have come up to me a year later or even that day and said, "Oh, you've got to be really afraid," I would have looked at you like you were crazy. I grew up in Upper Michigan. We don't have feelings. I grew up in a Finnish household, which Finnish people don't have feelings. Everybody knows that. So I had no relation to fear. And if somebody would have asked me, even when I was suiciding and when I was DUIing and when I was drinking, well, what are you afraid of, Rhonda? I would have looked at you like you were crazy. I'm not afraid of anything because I really believed I wasn't afraid. I just thought there was something wrong with me, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't until I started understanding how fear worked and I really kind of broke the lock on it and started, opening it up for myself that everything changed. So it was the recognition how fear works, how our body and brain works, how our neurobiology works. It was that realization that this is fear, Rhonda. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. And that was mind blowing for me. The thought that there was nothing wrong with me was so foreign to me. You don't understand. There is something wrong with me. Well, but it's fear, Rhonda. It's nothing wrong with you. It's actually just fear. And you've bought in to all your fear responses, all of your procrastination, all your beating yourself up, all your people pleasing, all your imposter syndrome. You believed that there's something wrong with you that you're doing that. And not necessarily seeing those as simply fear responses because you're afraid. And
Yes.
right? It was a humbling moment, humbling moment, and a wake up call.
And so, I mean, my goodness, as a child, losing your parents, especially in such a violent and horrific way right in front of you, is traumatic, beyond words.
Yes.
And, but then what you're talking about, the layers, right, of the stories you're telling yourself, the responsibility that you're taking, and the way that that's manifesting itself in your life. I wonder, can you talk a little bit about what shift understanding that it was fear and not you allowed, right? Like what
Oh,
that
it literally, you know what it did when I uncovered, and it really was a God download when I really was open to understanding this and really getting it. Because the first time I started realizing it, of course, I was like, what? Get out of here. It took a few times, right? But once I got it, um, what it did was melted shame away because it took away the burden of perfection. It took away the burden of having to be a certain way. It took away the burden of of you are to blame. You're at fault. And then what I could do after I started embracing this concept and starting to live from this place, I could see my father and mother differently. So, I look at my father now, and my father murdered my mother because he was afraid. He had no emotional resilience. He had no emotional intelligence. He had no ability to be with his feelings. So my mother was leaving him, and for him it was humiliation, embarrassment. It was in his hometown, and he had to get rid of the thing that was doing this to him. Right? I mean, when he was murdering her, he was saying, "You made me do this. You made me do this." Right? Like he took no personal responsibility for this. So my father, sure, people said, "Well, I'm sure he had a mental illness." Well, he might have, but he never exhibited that. Like again, not that something couldn't have happened, but regardless, my father acted out of fear. He didn't go talk to somebody. He didn't, go, "This is unusual thought. I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts," right? And then my mother, looking back and seeing her innocence, she stayed. She
Mm.
stayed for all those years. And when I was 12, my father tried to kill me, choking me to death. And my mother didn't take me out of the house. My mother didn't kick my father out, right? Like there was no, you know, it was like, well, always excuses. I mean, I don't remember my mother talking to me about it at all. Like she didn't come up to me and go, "Oh my God," nothing. We just pretended nothing happened. Da 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 da, right? And I don't think we're unique about that. I think that's the norm. So when I started looking at fear as part of our neurobiology, starting to educate myself and starting to understand how it worked, and recognizing that is literally part of who we are. And unless we understand how it works, it will work us, it will own us unless we understand it. Then I saw my father differently. I saw my mother differently. I could forgive my father. I could forgive my mother. And then I could forgive myself for not jumping in front of the gun because not saving my mother was a burden I carried, like I said, for 20 years. And, I used to have nightmares every single night. My father would be chasing me and killing me in my dreams. And it wasn't until that forgiveness happened between us that the dream stopped. So literally, my dream stopped. The burden of thinking that it was my fault was like sloughed off me, and the shame and blame just I want to say just stopped. So it was really quite miraculous. Um, and when I understood it, I also quit beating myself up because I no longer blamed myself for everything, right? Instead, it was like, wait a minute, Rhonda, you're just afraid and you don't have tools, right? You don't know how to do this. Oh, you mean I just don't know how to do this? Oh, it's fear. Oh, but it was so revolutionary for me because again, I had no relation to fear. And, people would talk about fear and I couldn't even understand it. And even the way people talk about fear today, the reason I created the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom is, talking about it the way we do today. Like every speaker, every coach talks about fear, right? Oh, you're afraid, right? It's like, okay, that is not helpful. That is not helpful. Okay, that's nice. Woohoo, yeah, but tell me what to do, right? Tell me what to do, right? And people really didn't have a solution. Oh, well, you have to get better sleep. F you, okay? Just like, what are you telling me, right? Eat better. Oh, screw you, okay? Like, I need something real, right? And so that's out of my own need, I created the Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom out of my own desire to heal myself. And of course, like I said, it's a download from God that I was able to apply it to myself and figure it out and get the message and be able to, actualize it, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, we're walking around with so much shame and blame. It's like, yeah, no, no. Like even the whole concept of imposter syndrome, right? Which is the theme of your podcast. It's like syndrome is just a fear, and it's in it, right? And it's just something we label imposter syndrome, so we can manage it, so we can kind of live with it, right? But yeah, imposter syndrome is just a fear, right?
So glad to hear you say that because I couldn't agree more. And I feel like I started this work with a really strong focus on imposter syndrome. But when I started to dig more deeply, I realized exactly what you're saying. At the root of it all is just this fundamental fear that is baked into us for
Yeah.
survival and everything. And that it manifests itself in some as imposter syndrome, in
Mhm.
others as aggression, right? There's all kinds of ways in which we compensate for that fear. But that's the root problem that we're not talking about and we're not giving people the tools to address.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So, when I give a speaking event or any type of speaking event, if there's 10 people or 1,000 people, I give everyone a quiz. And so I'll read a few of them because I'm sure you will totally relate based on what you just said. It makes me think of doing this. So I'm just going to read some of the ways fear shows up. So if you're listening to us right now in your safe place, shut your eyes and nod your head if you're not in a safe place, don't shut your eyes, but still nod your head. And nod your head if you do any of these things or feel any of these things. Because I want to build on what you just said, Kim, because it's so important. So, do you ever isolate yourself? Do you ever pretend everything's okay when it's not? Do you ever hide out? Do you ever whine? Do you ever settle? Do you ever compare yourself? Do you ever manipulate? Do you ever get defensive? Do you judge? Do you complain? What about procrastinate? What about wait and call it patience? Blame? What about struggle? Do you ever worry? Do you ever deflect? Ever feel like you have to control things? Do you feel bitter, powerless, dissatisfied, resentful, entitled? Do you ever feel guilty, disappointed? Do you ever get in perfectionist mode or people pleasing mode? Do you ever feel indifferent, irresponsible, irritated, like probably now reading these words, victimized, ignored, get caught in self pity or annoyed? So when I read these words to a group, 95% will raise their hand because I'll say how many had over 50, how many had 75. And I will say over 95% raise their hand to over 95%. And I would say most people in the room say 100%. So based on what you just said, right, how we compensate, some people compensate with imposter syndrome. Well, most of us compensate with more than one. We're compensating with many of these. And so then what do, Kim? We think we're the problem. I just wish I could quit people pleasing. God, I wish I could quit, disempowering myself and complaining so much. I was so judgmental. So we take these fear responses and label them character flaws. I should know better. I should do better. I should be better. It's like, well, let's just stop the being, doing, and all that better stuff and just go, hey, wait a minute. How much compassion can I have for myself? Because you know what? I got some fears going on, and my fear is showing up in all these ways. Okay. Because that's the thing we do. It's not just imposter syndrome. We're also beating ourselves up. We're also procrastinating, right? So we might label it like imposter syndrome, but we're doing it more than that. And then, like I said, every time we do it, because we're high achievers, because we want to be better, because we know better, because we've taken the classes and we do yoga, right? We know all this stuff. We go, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get this? Right? And it's like, this is not hard. I should be able to do this. I'm a smart person, right? But it's not you. It's part of our neurobiology. And fear, what I call the core fear, what I call the wheel of fear, is not meant to be found. Okay. Fear doesn't want you to find it because then fear can't keep you safe. So fear is going to keep you distracted by, oh, let her have her beat herself up. Beat yourself up. Go ahead. Do it. Do it. Do it. Oh, wait. Now have her judge. Yeah. Judge. Oh, yeah. Wait. Now have her, right? Like it's going to have you dancing because then you just blame yourself. And then fear goes, mission accomplished, right? Mission accomplished. Because fear is as smart as you are, as educated as you are, as knowledgeable as you are, and as spiritual as you are. So it uses everything you know against you to keep you safe. The challenge is safe for most of us feels like stuck, small, right? And so here we are, stuck and small, and we blame ourselves for it. I'm just afraid to shine. Okay. You are not afraid. Your authentic nature is not afraid to shine. You are not afraid to shine. Fear is tricking you into not shining, but you are not afraid to shine. You are not afraid to be your authentic nature. You are not afraid of that at all. But fear has tricked you and said, well, that's dangerous out there to shine, right? And then it's giving you all the language. Well, people are going to reject me and I'm going to fail and people are going to be jealous of me. And it's like all of that is just distraction. All of that is just keeping you off focus of what's really what you're meant to do. And we all know this logically, right? So I've created the wheel of fear and the wheel of freedom to pinpoint, help you understand what that core fear is that causes all those fear responses. So you can actually have a tool to address it so that you can quit beating yourself up, putting yourself down, thinking there's something wrong with you, because there is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear.
Yes. Oh, and it's liberating to think about it that way, right? I mean, gosh, managing versus like overhauling everything about ourselves. wheels, right?
Right. We run to procrastination class, then we run to overwhelm class, and then we run to boundaries class, and then we run to people pleasing class, and then we run to, right? We run to all these classes. And this is the thing with fear, Kim, is, like let's say there's a core fear. You have a core fear called the wheel of fear, right? Well, fear doesn't care what you do. Fear doesn't care if you procrastinate. Fear doesn't care if you people, it could care less. Okay. So if you solve one, fear doesn't care. It'll just point something else out. It'll just bring something else out. It doesn't care. So you think your problem is procrastination when you quit procrastinating, which, by the way, I'm going to give you a tool to support you with that and help you understand your fear better. But, then it's only going to have you do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just trying to keep you because it loves you so much. Fear loves you so much. Fear loves you so much. And it is its job to keep you safe. It's not your job to make you happy. Okay. Fear's job isn't to make you happy. Fear's only job is to keep you safe. Doesn't care about your happiness, doesn't care about you fulfilling your purpose, doesn't care if you're authentic, doesn't care about any of that, doesn't care how healthy you are, doesn't care. It only cares, I've got to stop her from going into the unknown because in the unknown, I can't keep her safe.
That's right. It's dangerous out there. Yeah.
It is dangerous.
Mm-hmm. So you're mentioning the wheels that you've created, and I know that there's a lot of complexity to your work, so I don't imagine, I'm not asking you to boil it all down, but I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about what your solutions look like and what the level of effort is, because a lot of times I think people are listening thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have time for, I've got all these other things going on in my life, right? So
yeah, no, it's actually not complex. It's actually quite simple. And it's quite actually, once you wrap your head around it, quite easy. And when people discover their wheel of fear, I just taught a class. Sometimes I teach the class live to do wheels, and I do it periodically. And I just did people's wheels just last weekend. And when people get their wheel, I've seen this now because I've been doing this for almost 30 years, is it's like they can see like for the first time.
Mm.
And the thing they say to me more than anything else is, now I know why I've done everything I've done in my life. I know why I got married, why I got divorced, why I went to school, why I didn't go to school, why I left that person, why I left that job, why I stayed in that job, why I did it, right? So, because like I had a client come to me and she's like, oh, I want to leave my job. My boss is so, such a jerk, And I said to her, I go, well, do you want to let that jerk run your life or do you want to master that jerk? And she's like, I want to master that jerk because we, had a conversation. So she identified her wheel of fear. We worked with her wheel of fear. And then she went to work every day, knowing what her fear was, knowing what her wheel of freedom was, and was able to completely shift that relationship with that boss. And that boss completely no longer treated her that way. And she is the only person that ever has been asked back. Like when she finally did leave, he goes, you have a job here anytime. Because she was no longer intimidated, no longer worried, no longer, afraid of what he could do to her, afraid of what he'd say, afraid, right? So, yeah. So let me just share with you. So it is actually easier than you think. I would say that the system is not complex. Is it take some effort to find your best wheel? Yes, because remember, the wheel doesn't want to be found.
Mm.
So I have created a series of exercises to help you uncover it. So you can either uncover it by doing my book, Fearless Living, by doing my course, Fearless Living Transformation Program. I take you through the whole process. Or so if you're willing to do self-paced, that's a great place, Fearless Living Transformation Program. And if you want to work with a coach, work with me or one of my certified Fearless Living coaches. So there's 3 ways to get it, right? You can do it on a book, you can do it in a class, or you can do it personally. And so, like I said, sometimes I do that Fearless Living Transformation Program live. So you could also do it live with me and I could maybe do your wheels, right? So I'm going to show you really quick. It has 4 components and each one has 4 components. And for those of you who are watching rather than listening, I'm going to show a picture right now. And have you ever heard the concept righty-tighty versus lefty-loosey, right? When you're screwing it, right? You're screwing in. I'm from the Midwest, so it's righty-tighty when you're doing a screwdriver, using a screwdriver, and lefty-loosey when you're taking a screw out. Well, the wheel of fear goes righty-tighty. So the first component of the wheel, how it starts in action, is what I call the trigger. And that's really your core fear. And when I created this, the word trigger wasn't what it is today. So it's really your core fear. So that trigger, so you're triggered, and then you start doing your fear responses, which are all the things you think are wrong with you. Okay. All the words I read are fear responses. Okay. Now we start doing those fear responses. I start people pleasing, start procrastinating. What do? You feel like crap. So then you go jump into your core negative feeling. Now, the core negative feeling, all of you know what your core negative feeling is. I just have to help you refine it. But you've all had that feeling. You all know what that feeling feels like, and you don't want that feeling. The core negative feeling is a feeling you do not want to feel. Okay. So you do the fear responses to avoid that. Okay. So once you have that feeling, we jump into self-destructive behaviors. And again, we all know our self-destructive behaviors, whether that's working out too much or too little, whether that's isolating, whether that's eating not a pint, but a quart of ice cream, eating the whole bag, right? Whatever that is, we know our self-destructive behaviors. Okay. So when we do our self-destructive behaviors, it actually solidifies the wheel and says, see, you have to try harder. You just have to get better at this, right? If you just got better, if you just were better, if you just tried harder, then we could avoid this. And so then you just get better at your fear responses. So you're not, right? You just get better at your fear responses, right? And you just shift your fear responses, right? So you're not actually addressing the fear itself. You're just changing the chairs on the Titanic, right? So what we do is we peel back that trigger, that core fear, because once you can see it, game over. So I'll tell you mine just to give you, ease. So my trigger is loser.
Mm.
Now, has anyone called me a loser ever in my whole life? No, they haven't. I was class president. I was a straight A student. I went to regionals for track. I was the leading scorer in the back. I mean, I was, sang every solo. Now, mind you, I was from a little tiny, tiny school, but I sang every solo, right? Like I was like, right? I was never a loser. Went to college, was the only female I went to the University of Minnesota, the largest enrollment college in the country at the time. And I was the only female on the finance committee for the entire university, right? Like, what are you talking about? I'm amazing, right? So I was never called a loser. So that's the thing. People say to me, I know what my wheel of fear is. I was called stupid my whole life. It's stupid. And I'm like, that is so not it. That is not, but good work, good thinking it is, but it's not. So the wheel of fear, the trigger is the thing that you would never think, like it's like so hidden. You would never think that about yourself. So when I go out in the world now, knowing my wheel of fear, when I start beating myself up or judging somebody or getting impatient, I know that there's some place that I'm not feeling seen and appreciated. And you are not, what do you think? I'm a loser? Now, again, that word doesn't resonate, and it never resonated with me until it hit me like a knife, right? Now I know it's loser, right? It's like I'm like, oh, okay, something around here, whether that's that person's look or something is happening right now where loser is popping up for me. Okay, Rhonda. Okay, Rhonda. If you don't stay awake, you're going to move into fear responses, right? So the minute I recognize a fear response, the minute I get impatient, the minute I start getting haughty, the minute I start competing or any of those things, I know I've got to jump over to my wheel of freedom. And my wheel of freedom is, like I said, lefty loosey, and it has 4 components. And the first component is the essential nature. Now, the essential nature is that part of you that you hid by the time you were 7. It was the part of you that was not safe in your environment, in your family, what you're exposed to. But even more importantly, what they're discovering is that fear is actually handed down, can be handed down through our DNA. So it could be something that didn't even happen to you. You didn't even have an experience of, but you knew that it was not safe to be this way or do this, show up in the world like this, because it just wasn't safe. So my wheel of my essential nature, the thing that I hid was authenticity. Now, when I was 12 years old, I was writing E. E. Cummings quotes, right? Like the one, I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, to become yourself is the hardest thing you could ever do, right? Like I worshiped those quotes. Like, yes, be yourself. I mean, when I was 12, I read the book, Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? Right? Like, it's like, if I could only be myself, right? But in my family, I was too much. I was too something, right? Like I was too much, I was too this, I was too that. And by the way, if my greatest fear is loser, is it safe to be authentic? No, because then they're going to know you're a loser, right? So my whole being was wired not to be the very thing I died to be, right? And the fear of looking like a loser, again, unbeknownst to me for most of my life, kept me in that false sense of like, sure, it could be imposter syndrome, right? Could label lots of things, low self-esteem, again, be label lots of things. But, and I believed that was real. And again, I blame myself for that, right? So the wheel of fear has four components. The wheel of freedom has four components, and you flip from your wheel of fear to your wheel of freedom. So when I'm feeling a fear response or when I'm doing a fear response, I know the first thing I have to do is go, wait a minute, Rhonda, wait a minute. If you were being authentic right now, what would you do or say? And I'm like, what? Right? Like, right? And so, of course, I have more tools than just that one sentence because you have proactive behaviors, et cetera. So once you identify it, the game changes because you have now exposed the wheel of fear, and the wheel of fear can't trick you.
Mm.
Because right now it owns you because it can trick you because you're ignorant of it, right? And it likes it that way. Remember, it's trying to keep you safe. It's doing its job. So once you expose it, um, you could have lots of reactions. I've had people, be like, no, that's not it. That's not it. When I know I hit it right on because it's just so like, no, it can't be. No, not that, not me. Right. I've had other people just start crying because they're just like, oh my God, yes. Right. I also have other people just stare into space going, right. And then another response is confusion. I don't understand. I don't understand. Because confusion is such a lovely fear response. I'm confused. I'm confused. So those are the four main responses that people have when they get their wheel of fear. And then we have that rare person that goes, "Oh my God, I see it everywhere." Yes. But then once you like embrace it and go, "Okay, I'm going to accept that for now because I trust you, Rhonda," right? Um, and they start working it, their whole life changes because they can no longer not see it.
Yes, you can't. Yes, like once you know, you
Right?
can't know.
You
Yes.
can't unknow, right? And so then as you're walking around the world trying to beat yourself up, you're like, oh, wait a minute, beating myself up is a fear response. Oh, crap, what's really going on? Oh, well, I got offered a new job and uh, I'll just use mine, loser. Well, what if I go to that new job? I'm really excited about that new job, but what if I don't fit in? What if, again, make up all the things, right? That's why we say the devil you know, right, is better than the devil you don't know, right? So then we say at the job, right? We stay at the job like, well, it's a good job. I gotta stay. It's a good job. I should be thankful, right? But it's killing your soul, right? But again, wheel of fear goes, yes, but this is a good job. And then everybody else, our lovely fear junkies in our life, not knowing what they're doing, are like, yeah, it's a good job. What's your problem? Right? Why aren't you thankful?
That's right.
Right? So we have fear junkies in our life, we have fear busters in our life. And I do want to say one more thing is that there are areas of everyone's life that you're already fearless. So the wheel of fear doesn't pop up unless you're in the unknown. So it doesn't pop up. You might be awesome at intimate relationships. It's probably not even around. But you might be scared to death in career, or you might be masterful in career and it shows up with your family. So when you're thinking of your wheel of fear, you do have to think of the areas where life isn't working for you, where you are constantly hitting the wall. Then that's how you're going to find your wheel of fear.
I'm so glad you said that because I think we tend to think in all or nothing terms too,
Yes.
right? And to recognize that when we talk about anything, there's a lot of, I'm going to make up a word, situationality to it, right? Like,
100%. Yeah. It's the context, it's the situation, it's the comfort. Yeah, it's so many things. So, you might be fearless 98% of the time, but that 2%, it's where you beat yourself up, where you judge yourself, where you go, I should be better. Why don't I know this? I should know this. I've done all this work. What's my problem? Like I said, I go to my yoga class every Sunday night. I eat well. What is my problem? It's like, well, honey, it's not a problem. It's not you. It is just how fear works. And it's meant to stifle you unless you decide to unveil it and, kind of see it for what it is. So then it can't trick you anymore.
Yes, that's right. And I think that's really important too. And when we get to that place of acceptance, I always say fear is a feature, not a bug, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That we're trying to get rid of. It's there for a reason, but how do we see it and manage it so that it doesn't hold us back from being?
Yeah, and that's why we have a will freedom so that you actually know how to manage it, right? And so, for instance, I had one client come to me. I work with coaches as well. So this coach came to me and started working with me. And, she was telling me about how she was working with one client. And she was, really proud of herself, which I'm like, yeah, you go. She goes, I helped my client discover that their wheel of fear, not the wheel of fear, that fear before she came to me. I helped my client discover her fear was not being good enough. Okay. Well, not being good enough is a generic fear for your wheel of fear. So everybody's generic fear is in some version not being good enough.
That's right.
Right. So what we want to do is we want to personalize it, because a generic understanding of fear is not as impactful and powerful because it's not personalized. So the wheel of fear and the wheel of freedom that I do and that I created is very personal. So your wheel is going to be different than my wheel. My wheel is going to be different than, Jean's wheel. And Jean's wheel is going to be different than Sally's wheel, right? Everybody's wheel is going to be different. So it's about uncovering how you operate so that you can see yourself, so that you can catch yourself, so you can shift yourself.
Rhonda, I love what you're saying and could talk to you all day. I am definitely going to rush out and buy the book and do more, research into what you're doing. But I also want to make sure that others who are listening, who also want more of you, have the access to you. So where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're talking about?
fearlessliving.org. So that's my website. If you click on the books tab, you can go get a free chapter of all 4 of my books. You can get a free chapter of every one. And I would love to gift a course. It's called Stretch, Risk, or Die. Stretch, Risk, or Die. And it's one of my clients' very, very, very favorite tools because it helps them take action. And it helps them understand how does procrastination work? How does fear work in procrastination, so to speak? So if you have a dream, a goal, something you want to make happen, whether it's health or career or love or whatever it is, then you pull out the Stretch, Risk, or Die tool. And again, it's one of the most common, most familiar, most loved tools. So you're going to go to fearlessliving.org, /risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK. And you're going to put your name in, you're going to put your email in, and you're going to get access to my platform, and you're going to get access to the Stretch, Risk, or Die course. Now, the course is only 3 videos, 15 minutes each. And so it's super easy. It has a workbook. It has the templates, right? It has everything you need to help you understand how Stretch, Risk, and Die works and how to apply it to your life. And then in the 3rd video, I actually go through the wheel of fear. So you're going to be able to see the wheel of fear in action. I actually go through the wheel of fear. So you're going to get a little bit more deeper depth to that. So go over to fearlessliving.org/risk within the next 24 hours, because you and I both know you won't do it otherwise. Go do it. Go do it. Take 45 minutes, people, 45 minutes, and you're going to understand fear differently, and you're going to have a tool that will impact your life today.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rhonda. That will be in the show notes for everybody listening. And thank you for the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. I love it. And I just want everyone to know that there's nothing wrong with them. It's just fear.
Yes. Yes, you and me both. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to the Impostor Syndrome Files. If you would like to continue this conversation in a safe and trusted space, I would love for you to join my virtual discussion group every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. For the past several years, the group has been limited to women, but it is now open, regardless of gender, to anyone who is interested in exploring and troubleshooting common workplace challenges, building better awareness of ourselves and others, and becoming more inclusive allies at work. Check out the show notes for more info on how to find us, and please join us next week for another episode of the Impostor Syndrome Files.